It's only if you say a swear word in the first 10 seconds you get demonetized on YouTube, right?
Oh no.
No, I know.
It could be worse. We could be becoming popular for painting a ball sack.
I saw that. I saw that video, and I'm like, I really don't know what to tell you guys. Because as you were talking about that, I'm like, I kind of want to jump in the comments and tell them to paint more ball sacks.
Welcome to Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40k podcast that has a narrative doubleheader. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
And yeah, we are finally catching up with some narrative things that have been released. We just finished our faction focus series, and we promised that our next episode would be talking about 500 Worlds. But we've got a treat because we also have the Maelstrom books to talk about. Those are coming out, or they should be up for pre-order as you hear this episode, as this episode is released. So we got a chance. Thank you, Games Workshop, for providing us both copies of 500 Worlds and the Maelstrom to look at. And we're going to be digging into both those books, the narratives inside them, the campaign systems contained within, and the other goodies they have. Other than that, there's not much in previews other than we have some stuff that is relevant to the Maelstrom. We got the data sheets for Huron Blackheart and the Masters of the Maelstrom, which I suppose we should get into that more when we get into the second part of the episode when we talk about the Maelstrom.
Yes, and I'll also toss out my little gripe and plea to GW. Please print enough of this stuff. 500 Worlds came out, and you can't find copies of it anywhere. And I'm hoping that's not the same for Maelstrom. So
yeah,
please
definitely. I want to. Yeah, I'll just give you a spoiler now. I definitely want a physical copy of Maelstrom. Just
yes.
Oh, Maelstrom, yes.
There's some stuff in there which we will get to in part 2. I want this. I want this, and I want a physical copy of this forever and ever and ever. Or just because there's some things I really love there. 500 Worlds, I will say, one of the players in my narrative group was lucky enough to be able to order one and has basically handed it off to me. It's to be our playgroup's copy because we're going to do the campaign contained within, which we will talk about in a bit. So I do have a physical copy complete with stickers, but yeah, they need to print more of these. Hopefully, let's see. Does the website say out of stock or just
I didn't check the website. I was just checking my local stores.
No, I know, stores have not been getting their allocations. It's a problem.
I know as far as I haven't looked at the 500 Worlds books, but I know as far as the model set, it does say temporarily out of stock, which gives me hope that they might reprint that and put it back out at some point.
Well, I was surprised at our store because I was there playing Armageddon Crusade yesterday, and they had one of the Necron boxes and the named character box.
Nice.
So, but they only had one of each. He said, yeah, this is my last one that someone didn't pick up, so I put it back out.
So I have bad news. 500 Worlds is listed as sold out online. Yeah. So it is out of print. They printed a small number and they're gone. Same thing for the 500 Worlds battalion of Necrons. However, the Captain Titus and the Wardens of Ultramar and Necrosaur Amantar, all of which we'll be talking about later, are listed as temporarily out of stock. So they will be coming back. But 500 Worlds, if you didn't get it, I hate to say it, you're probably not. And that is a problem because even if there was a digital version, it wouldn't work because this book does have physical aspects that you would need to use to really run the main part of it. So, so I'm sorry to be reviewing a book that is no longer available. Also, there's a boarding action set for Tomb World, which is just 2 Tomb World kill team sets crammed together. That is listed as available while stocks last, so that one will also run out eventually.
That I have seen in stores. I saw that in my store yesterday when I went. But yeah.
So yeah, again, it's the problem. We talked about this with the chapter approved decks, and we've talked about this with a lot of releases. Games Workshop needs to print more copies of these big narrative events, especially when they're pitching campaign systems. And I understand that they're probably looking at it as, well, there's only a subset of people who play these kinds of extended campaigns and these like more complicated things, but they're so fun. And it's like, you think you would want this out there. And I understand this is not an Arcs of Omen situation. In fact, in the newest White Dwarf, they talked about how this is the lead up to the new edition. So that's pretty much confirmed. And remarking that rather than doing what they've done in the past with like Psychic Awakening or Arcs of Omen, where they are doing a series of connected storylines, this is a bunch of individual theaters that will be examined more over the next several years. So like we'll see more going on in the 500 Worlds. We'll see more going on with the Maelstrom and whatever other thing. I'm assuming there's going to be another one in March that we don't know about yet. So I imagine we'll have 3, maybe 4 of these done, because these seem like 2 just small areas when there's a lot more going on in the galaxy. So we'll see what happens.
If that's the case, I'll toss out my wondering, will each of the future ones past these 2 also bring a new narrative way to play? And is this them just throwing a lot of things out there, seeing what sticks? And maybe that's why they're not printing a ton, because they don't know which direction they're going to go yet.
Yeah, I couldn't say. I really don't know.
That's my speculation.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just like looking at it, I'm like, I could see it going either way. So 500 Worlds sold and done, unfortunately. Something else that has been announced, though, and we got a little tease of this at the end of the New Year's preview, the Iron Warriors, and we're getting a new Warsmith for them, who looks absolutely beefy and terrifying.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of speculation that it was going to be Perturabo, but the Warpsmith looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, the Warsmith looks good. I like what they're doing with the upgrade kit here, because like with the different heads, and I mean the shoulder pads are shoulder pads, they're fine, but the heads especially change the profile of these Iron Warriors because they don't have the big horns and everything. They have like older style helmeted heads, and also a lot of heads with like bare faces and bionics and like what if Iron Hands but gone horribly awry type thing.
Yeah.
And it really does give them a different style, even if otherwise they're just a normal like Chaos Marine Legionary kit. It looks really good. I like what they're doing, kind of like I like what they're doing with the Red Corsairs, where they're finding ways to take these basic kits and make them look different, give them a different profile, so that it's not all just the same Legionaries over and over and over again.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's pretty much it on the preview front, so let's just dive right into it with 500 Worlds. As we've kind of mentioned in a couple of past episodes, the Ultramarines are based out of a part of the galaxy, in the eastern stretch of the galaxy, in Ultima Segmentum, called Ultramar. And Ultramar, at the time of the Great Crusade, was also known as the 500 Worlds. It was basically a little mini empire inside the greater Imperium of Man that had been independent. And then, of course, when the Emperor arrives, they very quickly turn to compliance. They join the Imperium gladly. And at one point during the Horus Heresy, when Guilliman and Sanguinius and I believe Lionel Johnson are in that section of the galaxy, and they are cut off by warp storms created by the Word Bearers, they basically don't know what's going on. They figure they're cut off from the rest of the Imperium. They don't know what is happening to the rest of the Imperium. And so for a bit, they create a second Imperium based in Ultramar with Sanguinius as the sitting in for the Emperor. This does not last. When it's revealed that there's not, that they can get out and the Imperium still exists, they quickly disband that. Although it does have some people kind of still go, at the time going like, is this a second heresy? What is going on here? Mm-hmm. But it was just like, hey, we don't know what's going on. We've got to, set up and organize what we do have. And then turns out, okay, we can move on.
Oops, we accidentally did a heresy.
Walk it back. My bad. Yeah. Now, of course, 10,000, Reboot Guilliman is lost shortly after the Horus Heresy, and in stasis for 10,000 years. During the Gathering Storm events, he is resurrected with the help of Yvraine of the Inari, and becomes the Lord Regent of the Imperium, because he's like the one remaining son at the time of the Emperor who is still loyal, and has actually the skills of logistics and governance to kind of manage the Imperium somewhat, although he is also a warrior at heart, so he is leading the Indomitus Crusade. But he wants to see the 500 worlds of Ultramar restored to their original glory. He knows this is a very difficult task. There are people, even within the Ultramarines, who are like, this is an impossible task, because a lot of the worlds of the 500 worlds have been eaten by Tyranids. They've been destroyed by the Plague War. There's Necron Tomb worlds mixed in. A lot of there's worlds that have been taken over by orcs. It is not a good time to be in parts in like parts of the fringes of Ultramar. But this is something that Guilliman wants back. We can do this. And he's like, we are going to do this, but we will do it right. In fact, they have the preface of his plan saying, like, we will do this correctly. We will apply the full rigor and codification of our experience and wisdom to the task at hand. We will neither underestimate our many foes nor waste the worthy strengths at our command. We will comprehend the true nature of the duty we undertake and the oaths we swear, appreciate all that we risk, and look unflinchingly upon the consequences of failure. But for all this, my sons, we will act. We must. And so kind of the idea is the entire Imperium is in torment. The war, my father's Imperium is in torment. This is like a microcosm of it. So if we can reclaim the 500 worlds, maybe that we can set the stage for a greater rebuilding of the Imperium. So unlike the rickety, dying Imperium that we talked about, he has this vision of bringing back what was meant to happen after the Great Crusade, had the Great Crusade gone correctly. Of course, we also argue that if they had gone correctly, he may have been put down by Custodes, but that's neither here nor there.
You can't quibble in details.
Yeah. So he has decided, the 500 worlds must be restored. Some of them are still in Imperial hands, but a lot of it is not. And because he is not going to be there to lead it, he has left this to the forces of Ultramar, who are led by the Tetrarchs. Now, the Tetrarchs are something that existed during the Age of Ultramar and the Great Crusade, and then after Guilliman passed and went into stasis, it was kind of disbanded. But then when Guilliman came back, he reestablished it. And basically, the Tetrarchs are 4 Space Marine captains, each of which is put in charge of a different quadrant of Ultramar. And then on top of that, over them all, is the captain of the 2nd Company of the Ultramarines, who has the title of Master of the Watch. His job is to protect and guard Ultramar. And that has now fallen on everybody's favorite video game Space Marine, Demetrian Titus.
Woohoo!
Because, of course, he's the big damn hero right now. And I don't think he's necessarily looking forward to this job, but he wants to see it done because he has been tasked to do it. And I think he also has a little bit of something to prove after the whole being accused of heresy for so long. See Space Marine 1 and 2 for more details. I'm not going to retell his entire tale here. And while this is a campaign for the 4 different fronts of retaking Worlds Lost, which is broken into the Vespater front in the Eastern Tetra, the Protoss front in the Western Tetra, the Andermung front in the Southern Tetra, and the Konor front in the Northern Tetra. This is primarily focused on the Vespater front, and specifically one star system in the Vespater front, the Heliodrus system, and even more specifically, one planet in that front, and that is Nova Magnar. Nova Magnar is not a particularly notable planet. In fact, it had been relatively recently colonized or recolonized and had been growing decently well. And there are plenty of threats in this section of the galaxy. obviously there are still the forces of chaos. There's leftovers from the Plague War when Mortarion took the fight directly to Ultramar. There are planets that are still completely uninhabitable or massively damaged from the results of the Plague War. And there's multiple chaos cults and incursions. And of course, the Word Bearers are still going to be kicking around because they hate the Ultramarines going back millennia. There are orc pirates to deal with. There are tendrils of Hive Fleet Leviathan. I remember Leviathan was the launch box for 10th edition, and that had to do with Hive Fleet Leviathan attacking Ultramar, which is why it was Ultramarines versus Leviathan Tyranids. So those are still around. And there's a number of Necron Tomb worlds scattered throughout the 500 worlds. Nova Magnar is one of those last ones. It is a former Tomb world. Or I guess a current Tomb world. Is a Tomb world ever stop being a Tomb world once the tombs are there?
Yeah, that's an interesting philosophical question. I think once you exterminatus the planet, it's no longer a tomb world.
Oh, it depends. Does exterminatus kill
it's someone else's
Morgoth?
tomb, I guess. It's someone else's tomb. We'll put it that way.
But basically what happens is Titus is dealing with the last bits of a Tyranid incursion on a different planet, and then gets a message from Nova Magnar that they're under attack from the Necrons. And so Titus decides, okay, well, we've pretty much wrapped up what we're doing on the planet of Vidaris, and that's also in the Heliodras system. So we can make a quick jump over to Nova Magnar and find out what's going on. Gets to Nova Magnar. There are obvious signs of Necrons fighting, Gauss weapon damage, things like that. However, just as they're arriving and trying to take stock of the situation, they're still in orbit at this point. Something starts rising up from the planet and trying to get away, and it turns out it is a Necron tomb ship that shows damage from other Necron weapons. And it doesn't attempt to do battle with the Imperium fleet. It is just trying to get away. And that is very bizarre. So, given the opportunity to stop the Necrons in their tracks, Titus leads a boarding action onto the Necron ship, and they fight through it, and they're able to retrieve a bulky, intricate-looking Necron artifact. They don't know exactly what it is, but obviously the Necrons were fighting to protect it, but this is still a mystery. Why were the Necrons trying to get away with this thing rather than using it, and why did they show signs that they had been attacked by other Necrons? He's examining the artifact. He's thinking maybe we should just put melta charges on it and destroy it. And then at that moment, he gets a signal from a Adeptus Mechanicus support ship in his fleet from Archmagos Controvertant Whitbore Oct. Way too many names. This Archmagos is an expert in Necron technology, even though that would be heresy to study. And the reason he's an expert is because he's a member of a cult that worships the Void Dragon.
Yeah.
We mentioned this last episode, that the Mechanicus may be being tainted by the Void Dragon that may or may not be buried under Mars. This is pretty good evidence that might be a thing.
It's fine. It's fine.
And so he is actually a secret worshiper of the Catan star gods. And so his goal is to discover all the Catan shards of the Void Dragon and reunite them so that the Void Dragon can rise again and teach them all the perfect technology of the gods.
Again, this is fine. There's no downside.
There is no downside to this going on. Titus decides, okay, Oct claims to be an expert. He knows what's going on. Maybe he can make sense of this. So goes ahead and they take the artifact. And Oct also warns them, if you destroy this thing, bad things could happen. You don't know what'll happen if you blow this up with melta charges. So maybe don't do that. Obviously, he has ulterior motives, but Titus is still, all right, fine, we'll just take this on board. And Oct can have custody of the device before they scuttle this tomb ship. And then they're like, okay, so now that you have this thing, we're going back down. We're going down to the planet's surface to find out what's going on. They go down to the planet. They find a tomb complex full of dead Necrons. And again, signs that the Necrons had been fighting their own kind. So he decides, you know what? We could just nip this in the bud right here. And Titus basically commandeers the use of a vortex bomb from the Mechanicus. Ooh. and brings several tech priests who will be there to activate it. So basically, we'll go down, we'll put a vortex bomb in the heart of this dead tomb complex, we'll blow it up, and that should cause the various nodes in their transport nexus to be cut off from Nova Magnar. Problem solved. No more Necrons on Nova Magnar. However, what Titus does not realize, and what we learn in the story, is who is behind the attack on the Necrons by Necrons, and that is a being known as Necrosor Amantar. Necrosor Amantar is utterly insane. He is possibly the first destroyer as far as the Necron destroyer cults. The Necrons who are obsessed with the destruction of all life in the galaxy. He is considered kind of a boogeyman amongst the other Necron dynasties. The problem with Amantar is his madness is infectious. It spreads to other Necrons. Now, sometimes it's individual Necrons who go mad, and Cryptex will tend to rebuild them into destroyer forms and try to use them. But Amantar has had himself basically constantly rebuilt and modified until he is a cross between a Scorpec destroyer, an Ophidian destroyer, a Hexmark destroyer. He is all the things.
He's the $6 million Necron?
Pretty much, yeah. And he's also a religious zealot because he worships the Nightbringer, also known as Azagorod. And that is the big Grim Reaper looking being. And as we mentioned in Faction Focus Xenos, that's the reason that so many species have the image of the Grim Reaper as the embodiment of death, is that it's a racial, genetic memory from millions and millions of years ago. But he's like, if we bring all the shards of the Nightbringer back together, we will recreate Azagorod, and he will destroy all life in the universe. And so that's what Amantar wants. And he's been able to bring in other Necrons as his infection spreads. And so he has a thing called the Oblivion Court, which on one hand has your standard kind of destroyers, but he also has strategic masterminds who help with the logistics of all this, because Amantar is also insane and only has moments of lucidity. And so Necrosor Amantar knew that there was a shard of the Nightbringer on Nova Magnar, or as the Necrons knew it, Uzshemek. That was their name for the same planet. That shard of the Nightbringer is inside a Tesseract vault, and that Tesseract vault happens to be the artifact that was on board that tomb ship. So while Titus, the Ultramarines, and these tech priests are down there with the vortex bomb moving through the tomb complex, trying to get it into position, they get to the main chamber, and there's a destroyer ambush. They pop up out of gates open up, it's waves of destroyers. Amantar himself shows up and is just killing tech priests and Ultramarines left and right. And all the tech priests are eventually killed, which leaves the Ultramarines with no way to activate the vortex bomb. So they abandon it. They're like, we have to make a fighting retreat, get out of the tomb complex, otherwise we'll all die. The Necrons kind of follow them back up onto the surface and just start wreaking havoc and destroying, just killing all the Imperials who are still on the planet. So Titus's forces are decimated. He's kind of in this odd position. So we could just leave the planet. I don't have the forces to pour just a massive assault onto this planet they would need. But if I abandon the planet, how would that look as me as Master of the Watch? That just says that there's no courage and honor in the Ultramarines. And so he sends out a call for aid. And unfortunately, he's able to get a small group of the Fourth Company to come help, but that's about it. And even then, it will take them time. Titus is like, we've got to figure out something. We've got this artifact. Apparently, the Necrons were trying to get it away from these other Necrons. We don't have a lot of information. Titus is forced to basically split his forces into 3 different fighting forces to basically protect various parts of the planet, to bolster the defenses as best they can. While this is happening, the Nightbringer shows, a shard of the Nightbringer shows up. They're able to fight it off, and eventually it vanishes, but they're like, nah, we didn't defeat it. It just teleported away to somewhere else. And so from what he knows of fighting other Necrons, it's like, we've got to destroy the heart of this tomb complex. And it's like, okay, so the bomb is still there. We left the bomb behind. The Necrons have pretty much ignored it. Oct is busy examining this Necron relic. We'll just leave him to it. We'll go down. I'll bring some tech marines with me. We'll try to trigger the weapon. We think this should work. And then we can cut off the flow of Necron reinforcements to the planet. And then that'll turn the tide and we can retake the planet. At this point, things are not looking good for the Imperial forces. And Amintar has been hearing the shard whisper to him from inside the Tesseract vault. Remember, Amintar is insane, but he's also very in tune with the Nightbringer. And eventually leads an overwhelming force to locate it and take it. And Oct, who has been obsessively studying it, is killed by Amintar. Well, he's not actually killed by Amintar. He is thrown by Amintar into a horde of other destroyers. So it's even worse than that. Like, they just tear him limb from limb.
He's probably fine.
No, he is not.
He recovered. Oh.
He is not, in fact. While this is going on, Titus's team of Ultramarines fights into the tomb complex, and they manage to defeat one of Amintar's Nemesaurs, who is kind of coordinating this particular attack on the planet. And they get to the Vortex Bomb. They activate it. They get out, and the Vortex Bomb basically carves a 5-mile wide crater into the planet, cuts out the heart of the tomb complex, and that does eventually shut down the flow of Necron reinforcements. Didn't destroy Amintar. Amintar wasn't even there. And in fact, Amintar had gone to the southern hemisphere of the planet, used a couple of other tomb annexes to get away with the shard. So in the end, both sides kind of get what they were trying to get. Titus is able to defend Nova Magnar, but Amintar gets away with the Shard of the Nightbringer, and that's kind of where the story ends, in a tie, which is not something that you generally want to see in a 40k battle, but it ends in a tie, and that both sides technically kind of accomplish their goals. And then the last little thing that is thrown at us is that, as we mentioned in our episode a couple episodes back, Lionel Johnson is on his way back. He is on his way to Ultramar on the Rock, saying, brother, we need to talk. He doesn't know that Gilliman's not there, but he's on his way, so things are about to get even more interesting.
Maybe he'll be the third book.
Maybe.
I'm sure.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And that is the narrative of, in a short, very messy format, that is the narrative of 500 Worlds. It is not the overarching campaign of all 500 worlds. It's this one battle on one planet over this one artifact, and hints of a Necron civil war, things like that. So it's very localized and small. However, the campaign system that is contained within is not very small. In fact, it covers the entire Vespator front. So we're talking the entire eastern portion of the Ultramar front. And this one is the most, I think, intricate campaign system they've released in a while. It does have a very nice fold-out map of the entire sector. And it's all about your alliance building up power on the various planets within. The planets are connected by different paths that show, like, hey, if you have a force here, you can impact things that on a connected world. The planets have spaces for building infrastructure. The planets have different theaters that explain, like, this is what kind of planet it is, and these are the areas you can fight on in this planet. Every planet has individual power levels for up to 3 alliances, because again, as most campaigns have been lately, this does support up to 3 alliances or 3 factions playing, which they even recommend, like, hey, depending on how many players you have, this is how many people you should have per faction, this is how many games you should expect to play per campaign phase. It's very intricate. It's similar in some regards to the old Urban Conquest set that they released back in 8th edition, where you could move from place to place, you could reinforce locations by building things on them, you could destroy things that were built. Basically, you start off, like, you've got one player who is the War Master. You basically have a GM for this campaign. It's complex enough you would need to. Then players group themselves into alliances, depending on how many players they have. And like I said, this has like a chart of, hey, if you have 7 to 9 players, you should have 3 alliances and you should have 3 fleets per alliance. But if you have 13 or more players, you should have like 3 alliances and everybody gets 1 fleet of their own. Sometimes you're not going to be able to divvy it up evenly, but that's fine. And then they recommend 6 campaign phases. In every campaign phase, you're going to be moving fleets around, declaring battles, things like that. And they do give you guidance on like what you're needing to do to win the game and how you earn campaign points. Because again, like all campaigns, you want to earn the most campaign points to win.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets to build a stronghold somewhere in the system. Each alliance secretly decides a planet to build on, and it's not first come, first serve. You can have 2 or 3 people having their strongholds on the same planet. The only time it becomes a problem is if there's not enough spaces on that planet to build that many. Because some of the planets have like 4 spaces for infrastructure. Some only have 2. So like if all 3 alliances want to put their stronghold on the same planet, it's a little bitty planet, then it says the War Master should randomly decide. But then everybody who has their stronghold on a planet starts their power level off at 4 on that planet, which is the highest power level. They range from 0 to 4. Then you pick 3 planets where you're at 3, 4 planets where you're at 2, everything else is at 1. You secretly decide on 3 other pieces of infrastructure to build other than other strongholds on planets and what planets you want to build them on. And again, War Master decides randomly if you run out of space. And then everybody decides where their fleets are going to be located. You update all the campaign map. So that's your setup. So you're going to have this setup like everybody's based on various parts of the system. They've built up things that'll support their forces, and they've got fleets scattered throughout everywhere, and they've got the power levels set for like what they control the most. And then you go into the campaign phase, and basically each fleet gets to pick one campaign operation. They pick one thing to do. And since you might have 3, 4 fleets, the stickers support up to 4 fleets. So yeah, so you have up to 4 fleets. You could get to do up to 4 operations. And basically everybody decides their operations secretly, and with an alliance working together. That can be battle, which means we're going to go fight somebody else. You pick a planet that a fleet is over or that is connected to a planet that fleet is over. And then you select one of the opposing alliances, and it's like me and you are going to fight. You decide on which campaign attack you want to play, which is what mission you're going to play. Although they do say if you don't like this mission, you could play a different mission and then just use the campaign results from the mission you would have played.
Okay.
You can move a fleet to any other planet with a void leap operation. You can build infrastructure on a planet. If you can't think of anything else, they have what they call the logistical auxilia operation, where if you find out somebody decides to fight you on a particular planet, you can decide, I pick what kind of battle we're fighting rather than the attacker, which is kind of neat. They have a deploy kill teams operation, which is not to play kill teams, surprisingly enough.
Aw.
Yeah, I know. It says when you pick this one, you pick a fleet's planet or one connected to it. And at one particular phase in the the resolution step on that planet, you roll a d6 for each of the other alliances. And on a 5-up, you lower their power level. The idea is you're sending out kill teams to disrupt their infrastructure and mess with their operations on the planet. So you can try to drag down their power levels.
Okay.
So once everybody's got all their stuff done and decided, everybody's actions are revealed. And then you do them in a particular order. So the War Master reveals this is what everybody's doing. And then you start off by building infrastructure, then resolving all the battles and processing the results, which basically the different missions have different campaign results. But you don't resolve the battle results until all the battles are fought. Because different you might have battles that try to do the same thing and can't because one side did something that stops what the other one was planning on doing. They mention attempting to steal a piece of infrastructure, but another faction destroyed that piece of infrastructure. In which case, you ask the person who won the battle but can't get what they wanted if they would like to make a different decision. And it should be ordered by power level. So whoever had the most power level on the planet gets priority. They had the most there to work with. Then after the battle results are done, you move the fleets. And this one is special because you can move from any planet to any planet. Like you can just void jump. Then you handle all the various kill team operations, try to chip away at other power levels. Then you look at the results of everything that's happened. You tally the combined power levels of every faction between all their planets. You add 3 points if their stronghold still exists and hasn't been destroyed. And then that is their current score for the campaign. It's not like, hey, this campaign phase, you get this many points. And this campaign phase, you get this many points. In past and other campaign systems, like we've seen this with Urban Conquest, it's easy for one faction to just run off ahead and no one else can catch up with them no matter how well they do. In this one, your points tally is constantly moving up and down as power levels shift. So you might start one campaign phase with like 30, 35 points because you have good power in a lot of systems. Then you have a bad campaign phase where maybe your stronghold gets destroyed, or maybe you just lost power because you lost battles and somebody managed to chip away with kill teams and your power drops. Suddenly your points could drop down into the 20s. It's always going to have this back and forth. I do like that. It is not just additive, but it is a constant flux between factions. And yeah, one faction could still just have really good luck and keep going, but their points aren't going to get so high that nobody else can catch up with them necessarily. Anything could change. If it's the final campaign phase after you do that, then you determine the overall winner. Otherwise, there are things that can happen. They have a set of what they call Vespator Front events. If one alliance is more than 5 campaign points ahead of everyone else, so somebody is well ahead of everyone else, that alliance is said to be dominating, and the War Master rolls a d6. On a 4-up, they generate a Perils of Power event, which could be cult uprisings on their planet, or the next time a player fights a battle on a planet owned by the dominating alliance, they can treat their power level as 1 higher or lower, depending on what the campaign mission requires. Or everybody else gets to see their campaign actions before anyone else decides on their own, because somebody has been spying on them. So basically, if somebody starts getting too far ahead, there's a possibility of things happening to even the scales a little bit that are random. If someone is 5 campaign points behind everyone else, so one of the alliances is just behind the other 2 and doesn't look like they're close to catching up, then they become the trailing alliance. Again, War Master rolls a d6, and on a 4-up, a Desperate Measures event happens, which they get to select a planet other than one that has a stronghold on it and just swap power levels with somebody. Or they get to declare an additional campaign action. Or they may just get to, for every piece of infrastructure they have on the map, they can remove it and put it somewhere else, and then build an additional piece of infrastructure for free somewhere. So they give catch-up mechanics and they give pullback mechanics, which I really do like. And then, in addition, the War Master rolls a d6, adds 1 to the result if you're on the 4th campaign phase or later, and on a 4-up, you generate just a random event, which could be anything from void piracy, where you can't do void leaps because there's too much pirate activity, so you can just do normal movement. Or everybody loses a power level on every planet because of starvation and disease. Or stellar storms, which might destroy infrastructure locations on the planet. There's like 9 different things that could happen. So there's things happening in the map outside of your control, which is kind of neat and something we haven't seen in too many campaign systems, to give you the feeling like this is a living campaign, not world, but because it's a whole bunch of different systems, but it's like a sector where things are constantly going on.
Mm-hmm. I like those living world maps like that.
And then after all the events have been resolved, then you can move fleets around using those connected paths between planets. So like you've got the Void Leap, which just lets you put a fleet anywhere, but then you can move your fleets around on the connection paths, and that lets you kind of like redirect where your forces can be. Because remember, you can do a battle on a planet where you either have a fleet or that is connected to where you have a fleet. So it may take you a while to move forces to where you want them, although you can move one or more of them on with a Void Leap. But remember, if you move it with a Void Leap, that fleet can't also do a battle. So there's a little bit of give and take, opportunity cost, which is always good in one of these systems. And then finally, working in order from highest to lowest power level across all planets, you can build pieces of infrastructure. And that's different from the raise edifices, because that lets you build a piece of infrastructure before battles take place. This one, then everybody can build one after battles have taken place. So you can take an action to kind of jump the process, just like you can take an action to move a fleet outside of the normal moving. At the end, you look at whoever has the most campaign points based on their power levels across the sector, and there are awards that are given out. There's the Laurel of Victory, that is to whoever had the most campaign points. And then the idea is the next time you do a campaign, they get to have special choices. So it's like, the idea is like, this campaign, we could play it again. And if you won that last time, you get a little bit of a perk to start with. There's the Penumbral Wreath, to the Alliance with a power level of 1 at the most planets. So you did the worst, but you had at least better than a 0. You pick 2 planets when setting up the campaign map. You just automatically increase the power level on those planets by 2. So you get more power. You did really badly last time. Let's give you a leg up this time. The Star of the Voidfarer, awarded to the Alliance with the largest distance between any 2 planets that their support facilities are built on, which is a particular kind of infrastructure. In the move fleets, you can move your fleets twice in the next campaign. And then Sable Dagger, the Alliance with the largest distance between any 2 planets their fleets are at. When setting up the campaign map, you can swap the power level on any 2 planets around up to 3 times. You place your power level and you're like, no, somebody else has done that. I'm going to swap that. Now I'm going to do it again. So just to try to get a leg up on people. So they give you, they encourage you to play this campaign multiple times. Besides that, there's the various theaters on planets. So planets might have a spaceport, a desolate wastes, xenoflora jungle, a rad zone, a forge complex, hab sprawl, delve site facility, which is like mining, a deadlands, just a desert, and a tomb complex, obviously Necron stuff. And each of these has a twist that can take place that can affect the battle. And they also have recommended terrain for the various zones. So like for the spaceport, they recommend using tall buildings and ruins. These should be placed plentifully across the battlefield with gaps large enough for larger vehicles to navigate, possibly with barricades to represent cordons. The Desolate Wastes, they recommend using lots of area terrain with smaller footprints. Jungle recommends using a mixture of woods and ruins, things like that. And terrain that we don't often see because everybody's been doing the same matched play layouts with the same ruins over and over again. They're actually encouraging you to build more narrative boards with this, which I do like. And since you know what planet you're going to be fighting on and the attacker decides, hey, we're going to fight in this theater, you can kind of say, okay, let's set up this kind of battlefield. Which is a lot of fun. And I know you guys had a lot of fun on narrative tables at the Grand Narrative. And this kind of encourages people to do the same thing.
Yeah, and it makes me think back to, I'll say the old days when there wasn't standard competitive terrain. So even when you went to a tournament, the terrain would vary wildly. So you had to actually make judgments on how you do things based on the way the terrain was.
I don't like making decisions based off of the table, though. I like going in knowing exactly what every piece is going to be and what the layout is exactly. No.
I was going to say, I detect sarcasm there, sir.
No, not at all. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I would never do that.
They also do mention what happens if infrastructure is destroyed. Planets have a certain number of spots of infrastructure. However, if a piece of infrastructure has been destroyed, that slot gets filled in with a little golden skull sticker. Nothing else can ever be built there again in that spot.
Oops. So the physical fold-out map is very important and kind of limited use in this campaign. So clearly that is made available that you can purchase separately by itself, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, no.
Okay, cool. Cool. Cool.
And they also mentioned once a planet has had all its infrastructure destroyed, because remember, every time an infrastructure is destroyed, that slot is gone, can't be used again. Once a planet's infrastructure is completely destroyed, all those slots get filled in with the little golden skull stickers. You can never have power at that planet again. Everybody's power level is reduced to 0 on that planet, And fleets can move there, but they cannot select that planet for anything. You cannot battle there. You cannot build infrastructure there. Obviously, the slots are all gone. You can't void leap there. Like, you can do normal moving, but you cannot select that planet for anything because it's basically been stripped of biomass or sends to exterminatus or whatever. It's just like it's so destroyed it is worthless.
Nice.
So you can go for like the Pyrrhic victory. If I can't have it, nobody can kind of path if you want.
So my thought about these maps and stickers is, okay, I'm going to take the map and I'm going to mount it to some metal and I'm going to make the stickers into magnets.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. That would not be a bad idea because it's a fold out poster style map and it's not even huge. I think it was A2 sized is what I've heard. Quite understand British paper sizing, but I think the size of 4 letter size pieces of paper.
Yeah, it's like compared to like a codex book, it's a little bit taller than a codex and about like 3 codexes wide. So it's not like a huge map.
No, it's not gigantic. It's got like a slick surface on it. The stickers do stick and come up decently well, although like sometimes the stickers stick so well, like they'll peel up. They won't damage it, but sometimes if you don't have a thumbnail, it's kind of hard to get under there and peel them up if you press them down too hard. So just be aware of that. So magnets would be a good solution to that to make this really reusable. The stickers are going to get unsticky after a bit. In fact, I tested out one of those Golden Skull stickers and I put it back on the sticker sheet. Somehow it got stuck to the back of one of the books. So they came right up off the sheet again. So yeah, magnets wouldn't be a bad way to do it. You could just basically put this over a piece of like magnet backing, and fortunately, like all the stickers, you can definitely see the outlines on all of them. So it shouldn't be terrible to cut out if you decided to go that route.
Okay.
The one thing that kind of frustrates me a little bit about this map and puts this a little bit below the Urban Conquest map. Now, granted, the Urban Conquest map is a whole thing where it's got like a whole bunch of pockets that you slot cards into to build your city that you're fighting over. And, you know, it has spots for building infrastructure and marking things as destroyed and tracking power levels and everything. But the one thing that knocks this a point off for me is that it is just ever going to be the Vespouter front. These are fixed planets with fixed theaters. It will never be anything other than this zone. I would love it if they had done a version of this where you could generate different theaters. Like, hey, going into the map, we're going to randomly roll up what the different theaters for each planet are going to be. And suddenly it's going to completely change how people fight over it. That would be cool. It's not what they did here. They're doing one particular campaign, and it's fine. Like, I don't think there's necessarily a problem with having them predetermined. It's just, I would love to see a little bit more customizability, but it's fine.
So obviously, as you're describing it, like it's kind of fiddly, as you mentioned. Do you think this is like too complicated, or do you think this will be fine once you start playing it?
I think once people get into the vibe of it and kind of get used to doing the campaign actions with the understanding, like you're basically playing a strategic game on top of your tactical games of 40K, and it's going to be its own thing, and you're going to have to work together as an alliance to plot out strategies. And I think once people get a couple of campaign phases under their belt, it will seem less complex. Where it does get, I think, even a little bit trickier is looking at the campaign outcomes for the various missions. So, for example, one of the missions is seize power base. You're trying to seize a power base from your opponent. If the attacker wins, they select one piece of the defending alliance's infrastructure pieces at this planet, excluding a stronghold. That infrastructure piece is removed, and the attacking alliance builds one piece of infrastructure of that type in its place. So basically, you change the alliance on it.
Okay.
If the attacking alliance's power level at this planet is 3 or more, they build an additional piece of infrastructure, add 1 to the attacking alliance's power level at this planet. If the defender wins, the defender can build a fortification lines at this planet or at a connected planet. If the defending alliance's power level at this planet is 3 or more, they can build a staging grounds instead, add 1 to the defending alliance's power level at this planet. If it's a draw, add 1 to the attacking alliance's power level at this planet. So you've got all these things that are conditional on like what your power level is at the time, which is why some of those events that say like, hey, you get to treat your power level as 1 higher or 1 lower for this battle, depending on what you want to do. You're going to have to be like kind of coordinating that and figuring out every mission, what is the power outcome? Like, what is the campaign outcome? What is my power level? Is that going to get me the thing I want? Just stuff like that. I think that's going to be the most complex part. And at first I was like, the scoring struck me. It wasn't clear at first. And then I realized, oh yeah, you don't score at the end of every campaign phase. It just, everybody recalculates. I think once people realize that too, that'll be easier to follow.
Okay.
I think from listening to it, because I have not played any of those, I don't have the materials, I have two concerns. One is, it does sound like it's going to take a long time to play. This would be like a months-long campaign.
Oh yeah, they say this should be like 6 months, like 4 to 6 months.
My concern with is how fast, and this is going to sound weird, how fast they're releasing new materials. By the time you have a second campaign that you want to try, they might have all sorts of new different game modes your play group might want to play. So, and that leads into the third one of, if there's not support for this ongoing, is this a one and done product?
Yeah.
So I would say, first off, most of this outside of the twists for the different theaters that you can fight in, and then the missions themselves, obviously, those will probably have mechanics that may or may not apply to 11th edition, depending. We don't know what 11th edition is going to look like. If it's relatively close, they're probably going to be fine. If it's a revamp, could be very different. It may not apply. The campaign system itself seems pretty agnostic as far as what you're playing underneath it. And I will say that they do specify, hey, if you don't want to play these particular missions, play whatever you want. So if you've got a different style of mission you want to play, that might work. Is this going to be a long time thing coming in the middle of an edition change? Yeah, that is a concern. I do also think this is a one and done. I don't see them continuing support for this. I think this is a self-contained, especially with it being tied to one particular sector of the galaxy. I see this getting the same kind of ongoing support as any of the existing Crusade books have, i.e. none.
Fair. Unlike Boarding Actions, when it came out, it's still getting support as it gets support in this mission set.
Right. And in fact, Boarding Action is one of the type of battles you can fight. And in fact, if you do a boarding action, you can actually use that to force another fleet to move. There's a strategic reason to use boarding actions here. And they do have a boarding action, like that battle type just says, hey, go to the Dread Incursion book, which is the boarding actions book they included in here, and play one of those missions. And then it's got campaign outcomes based on who wins, who loses.
So it does sound like this, like maybe this specific product isn't going to get like a lot of like ongoing support, but they're building a campaign style that could be reused in future books. So yeah. So that's encouraging, and that means that hopefully they're going to continue to support narrative play in 11th edition, like in an ongoing fashion. So
right,
that's encouraging.
I don't think there's anything in here that couldn't be played over and over again, and you could take this exact campaign system, change out the map, keep all the mechanics otherwise the same, and have it for any other sector. Like, I think you could do that. You could make it from being a bunch of different star systems in a sector to a bunch of planets in the same system. Like, you could scale it up, you could scale it down, it would be fine. The mechanics of the campaign system, I think, are pretty solid and would work, again, regardless of edition and regardless of what setting. I am just a little bit bummed that the map is specific to this one, but there's nothing saying they could release a map pack for this that had like 3 other sectors for the other 3 quadrants of Ultramar and have the same kind of thing. And there's nothing in here other than the presence of tomb worlds, which there are tomb worlds across the galaxy, that is unique to like Necrons or tied specifically to the Vespater front. So this could easily be reworked without any trouble. I did think it was interesting that they did do a full boarding actions book called Dread Incursions in here, which does add the Tomb World terrain to the options for boarding actions, which I really do dig. And they did add a pair of new boarding patrol styles, the Shield of the Void for the Astartes and the Harbinger Cabal for the Necrons. And then they have a couple of campaigns which are more classic tree campaigns. There's a starting mission, and then based on who wins or who loses, it shows like where do you go next and what mission are you playing. And then they all kind of branch into eventually like where the final mission is going to be. So like there's one called Eldritch Depths, which is like you do decryption and then take the artifact if the attacker wins, or the defense grid is awakening if the defender wins. And then from there, if there's a tie or not, you might go to a different mission and eventually work your way around. But it looks like it's never meant to be more than like 3 or 4 missions for the campaign. And then eventually you end up with locating an escape route. So the invader has done whatever they can, and now they're going to try to get away. And this is all meant to be played in the Tomb World campaign, or like Tomb World terrain. And then there's the boarding strikes, which is meant to be played with the standard boarding actions terrain. And it's got the same kind of thing. There's a starting mission, and then this one actually has 3 different final missions depending on how it branches. So you're never going to be playing more than like 3 games for that campaign. So they're all very small campaigns you can play. They also have special ones for like, here's a campaign for doing ship-to-ship fighting, which should never have more than like 3 or 4 games played.
Yeah.
And they have a campaign system with tracking campaign victory points and tactical points and spending the tactical points on tactical ploys. So you can make just the boarding action part as complex as you want, knowing the campaigns will still only be like 4 games long.
I am highly encouraged that they're continuing to support boarding actions. I think it's a cool format, and it is almost like a middle ground between like Kill Team and full 40K. So I don't know. I'm really glad they're continuing to support that.
Yeah, and that tells me that with as much work as they put in, because they could have done nothing. Like, if they had not put in a boarding actions book, I don't think anyone would have really noticed. But they did put one in, and it implies that they are going to continue to support it. And I don't know, because obviously the stuff from Arcs of Omen had to be reworked for 10th edition once we switched over to that edition.
Yep.
But like the way they have the boarding patrols set up for this, it feels like they kind of expect 11th edition to work similarly. It seems like a lot of work to throw in for something that's only going to be active for a few months.
Yep.
Yo, dog, I heard you like campaigns, so we put a campaign in your campaign.
So you can campaign while you campaign?
Yep. I'm good with that.
Yeah. And the only other thing that is included in this is the tightest detachments, which are the same detachments that were released online as digital downloads. So I do like the fact, as we've said, that, hey, they are actually putting the materials that you would need to play match play out there for free. You don't have to buy the 500 Worlds book, which also I don't know if that's a harbinger of things to come, or maybe just acknowledgement of we didn't print a lot of these and we know people are going to want to play them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is everything in 500 Worlds. The narrative is fine. It was okay. It was definitely like Necrons versus Ultramarines as the theme, with both sides kind of winning. Like, it's fine. I think the campaign system has a lot of potential to be fun to play, but it is probably the most complex one they've done in a long while. But I kind of like seeing them experiment with doing stuff for people who would want to play this. And I am still amazed that they did not put any Crusade in this at all. Crusade is not even mentioned. I imagine you could integrate Crusade in with it, but this is already complex enough as it is.
Oh, it makes me wonder if the lack of inclusion of that is a harbinger for things to come. Of like, maybe they're moving away from Crusade as a play style and moving into, campaigns and stuff like that. So, which if they did, I would be fine with that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I agree.
I'll say, Kevin, as we noticed in like weekend narrative events, that's not enough time for a big campaign, but if you just have a smaller thing with small upgrades, perfect place for that.
Exactly.
So obviously something like this is not the thing that you're going to be playing in a weekend. Like, there's no way. This is a multi-month thing, and they're very upfront about that. Like, this should take a few months to play. This should, like, 6 campaign phases. In addition, in general, we expect each campaign phase to last about a month, with a typical player playing 2 games in this time, which does mean you're only going to be putting in like your fleet orders at the beginning of the month. And then it's basically, let's figure out the time for everybody to get the games in based on all the battles. Cause remember, you just get to pick who you want to fight when you place each battle. So the actual campaign phases, I think, are less structured than even the campaigns that I'm doing right now, where I declare pairings and everything. But it feels like it's kind of a slow burn campaign.
Yes.
Which is not a bad thing necessarily.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you're committing to something
Oh,
for this.
definitely. Yeah. This is not a short. And my players would be used to that. We've been doing campaigns over like 3-4 months with doing pairings and tracking goals and everything over like week by week. So this would actually be slightly slower paced for us, which is not necessarily bad. But I think a lot of narrative groups could probably handle this. And they do even have like, hey, if you've only got 2 players, you just have 2 alliances. They have 3 fleets each, and you move around, and you're going to get 2 to 3 games in with your opponent. And so this does work for 2 players theoretically, but I think it's definitely going to be better with, I'd say, 6 to 8 players, maybe up to 12 players. But it feels like it won't, just with the number of stickers in here, it's not going to scale much more past that.
Yeah, I hate saying it. It almost feels like the stickers and the physical product is a hindrance in a way, even though it's part of the draw.
Yeah, and it is. And that's true for like Urban Conquest as well. You've only got support for 4 players or factions, and you've only got 25 spaces to fight over on the board. So there's only so many spaces you can fill in with everything. So it does have its limitations. Any kind of thing where you've got a campaign map is going to do that. But I like that they have a campaign map. Honestly, I wonder if you could retool this, because I have the Warhammer 40k Risk game, which was the fight on Vigilus, and use that map to track things theoretically.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like you could do a similar, like basically set up what the different theaters are for each zone of the map and just move around that way.
Or technically, Rob, I know you've done this with Urban Conquest. You could make your own map in the style of this and just have your own.
Yeah, so you absolutely could, and that would be another argument for magnetizing the stickers, would be to be able to just swap maps out and not have to worry about the map being sticker friendly or not. Yeah, theoretically, you could redo that if you want to put in that level of work. It'd be nice if they had the assets out there for doing that. That would be cool, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. But yeah, that's everything in 500 Worlds. And I will say the presentation is nice, being in the slipcase and everything. It's a good set. I am sad that it is completely sold out. I would have liked them to at least keep it in print through the end of the edition instead of it being a one and done, like the ultimate one and done.
And it's one that I was actually looking to pick up and then not finding. I'm like, oh, I guess I don't need it. So
yeah, so that is unfortunate. Unfortunate. We'll be talking about the second book the second set in just a bit. But first, we're going to go ahead and take a break for sponsor identification. But before we do that, if you want to support the show, there are 3 great ways to do that. First is our Patreon at patreon.com/preferredenemies. That gives you access to an ad-free version of the show if you don't like listening to the ads in the beginning, middle, and end of every episode. Access to our Discord, which is a lovely community of the preferred frenemies who love hanging out and mostly tormenting Kevin. It's fun. Access to any exclusive content we create, such as our 10th edition update for the Urban Conquest campaign set from 8th edition. And just also knowing that you are helping support the show. We don't lock any of our content behind a paywall other than, obviously the ad-free version, but it's the same content, just without ads. But basically, enough people put in $1 because it's only $1 a month. We don't have any tiers. But if you put that in, it adds up and it helps out supporting our recording service and our hosting and helping us eventually get, do more things, travel to more events, get more merch out there, etc. So we really do appreciate all the support we've had from our patrons over the last several years. And we would invite you to be part of that group. Remember, that's patreon.com/preferred enemies. Second, we are on YouTube at youtube.com/@preferred enemies, where we post video versions of all the episodes about a week after they come out on audio. And again, just do all the standard YouTube things like subscribe, comment, interact, help us fight through the algorithm and get the show getting out to more eyes and ears. Third is our merch store at preferredenemies.com/merch. I mentioned we're working on trying to get more merch designs. If you want to help rep the show with Preferred Enemies, hats, shirts, mugs, stickers, we've got all that up there on the site. And we'd love to see more of our stuff out in the wild. That would be great. So those are 3 ways you can support the show. But if not, we are ad supported. And so we're going to go ahead and take a break for our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Maelstrom box set and all the goodies contained in there. See you in a bit. And we're back, and that means it's time to delve into the Maelstrom in part 2. But first, before we do that, we did have an announcement you wanted to make. Kevin, take it away.
Yes, Midwest Conquest 2026. We are coming back. It is here in Kansas City at Raytown High School, the weekend of May 23rd and 24th. The GT signups are now available, and the narrative signups are also available up on the Midwest Conquest website. BCP events are out there. If you have any questions, please let us know. We're going to post more updates as we get closer to it. But we're excited to be back. We had to change locations this year, which is part of the reason for the delay. But the events are live, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody who wants to come to Kansas City Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, if you're wondering why we had to change, basically with the World Cup coming to Kansas City this year, right around the time of Midwest Conquest, I think the first game's, 2 weeks after?
Yeah.
Hotel space and event space in Kansas City became unavailable very quickly. So, in fact, as early as last year, we were unable to get spaces. So we have found a space. It's not the one we would have necessarily planned on, but it should be big enough to hold all the events that we had last year, minus Beer Hammer, because it is a school.
Yeah, we do miss out on Beer Hammer, but otherwise it's a good event space. Like I said, it should be a good time, and we should have plenty of space for everybody to come and attend.
So, MidwestConquest.com, or search for Midwest Conquest on Best Coast Pairings. All the events should be there and available for sign up. We'll have more details on things like the Raffle Army, and I think we'll be doing the same charities as last year, but we'll have more details coming as we get closer to the event. But yes, we hope to see you there if you were there last year, and if you haven't come before, we hope to see you again. Although I know last year we filled up the narrative, so hopefully we can do that again this year.
Absolutely.
Speaking of narrative, let's dig into the Maelstrom. So the Maelstrom box is 3 books plus a slim book for the various detachments. Now, in full disclosure, we received a digital copy of this to review. It did not include the detachments for the Maelstrom, although we know those will likely be released as a free PDF later, much as they were for 500 Worlds. Now, they did say what those detachments are, though, in the campaign book, because they did mention that there are detachments for Chaos Space Marines, Orcs, Eldari, and Leagues of Votann.
Yay, Leagues!
Yeah, the Chaos Space Marine detachments are Huron Blackheart's Red Corsairs, or any other Chaos band of pirates. The Eldari is the Corsair detachment, which I knew when we did the Xenos episode that would be coming. The Orcs detachment is Freebooters. Freebooters are back, baby.
Nice.
Yeah. And the Leagues of Votann detachment depicts a force at their most ruthless, typifying kin, practicality, and reinvesting their resources into especially lethal assaults. So it would be interesting to see what that is going to be. But before we get into the mechanics of the campaign and such, let's set the stage. Because I will say the lore book for Maelstrom, which is called Lair the Tyrant, is less a full narrative. There is a little story at the very end, but it's more just really setting the stage. And the stage here is the Maelstrom. It is a warp storm that has existed for thousands of years, kind of like the Eye of Terror, but smaller. It is not connected to the Great Rift. It is near it, but it is not connected to it. And it is basically a very dangerous realm of space to navigate, as things will pop in and out of existence. Routes are hard to follow. Stars kind of flicker in and out of existence or visibility. They even mentioned that, hey, you could be piloting a fleet through the Maelstrom and suddenly asteroids materialize inside your ship as reality just kind of pops in for a second.
That seems like a problem.
It is a little bit of a problem. It is not a place that is settled by many people, obviously, but it does make the perfect setting for pirate hideouts. And the Maelstrom itself is populated by many different bands of pirates and renegade forces. Obviously, the main one that is discussed here are the Red Corsairs, led by Huron Blackheart. More about him in a bit, but there's also Eldari Corsairs, Orc Freebooters, The Inquisition even has a base in the Maelstrom that they've managed to hold all this time for several centuries. There are demon worlds. There are Necron tomb worlds that are basically partially destroyed and thus are being looted by everyone, including other Necrons. The Word Bearers have a Forge world base in the Maelstrom. So basically, it just looks like this big swirling mass of energy and warp stuff and reality, but home to many different star systems and pirate bands. And no pirate band is better known than the Red Corsairs, formerly known as the Astral Claws. Now, I'm not going to get into the entire history here. Arbiter Ian has a number of episodes about the Badab War, which is what happened when the Astral Claws basically seceded from the Imperium and then were put down and the remnants fled into the Maelstrom. And in fact, they do specify in this book that Luft Huron, who eventually became Huron Blackheart, had history fighting in the Maelstrom as part of the Astral Claws, and so it was natural for his fleet to kind of seek sanctuary here. And in that time, they had, since Rising, the Red Corsairs have had quite the career. They have fought off the Salamanders. They invaded the homeworld of the White Scars and tortured their chapter master. They have convinced some space wolves to turn renegade and become the Red Wolves. They're a very powerful pirate warband, rumored to possibly be as strong as a Space Marine Legion. Not a chapter, a legion. They are heretics, but they don't necessarily worship chaos, but they are basically independent operators. They have carved out a little empire for themselves inside the Maelstrom, and they have told the Imperium in no uncertain terms, the Maelstrom is theirs, not the Imperium's. Imperium rule has no sway here. And they have so far shown themselves to have the power to maintain that. They don't necessarily have greater plans to take over the Imperium. They basically just want to take what they need and hold this space. But they're perfectly willing to take on beings who have had other issues with the Imperium. Like one of the warlords is an Iron Hands officer who killed too many Allied soldiers because he just didn't feel that they were up to his standards. And they were going to punish him, and he decided instead to kill the serfs on board the ship that was transporting him and steal it and go into the Maelstrom and join the Red Corsairs. There's plenty of Imperial Guard who have gone traitor and have joined the Red Corsairs. And they're all led by Huron Blackheart, who was once the chapter master of the Astral Claws and basically felt that the Imperium was not supporting him in the manner that he needed, and he stopped giving his the gene seed tithe that the Inquisition expects so they can search for any mutations and make sure everything is solid and kind of hold that over various Space Marine chapters. Decided he wasn't going to pay the tithe anymore, convinced several chapters to join him in seceding from the Imperium, and the Imperium put down that rebellion in the Badab War. Huron himself was thought dead, effectively obliterated by a melt-a-gun, but it turns out should have gone for the head.
Yeah.
Because between his tech marines and his chief apothecary, they were able to kind of put him back together. He's half cybernetic now, but he is also absolutely in charge. He is the undisputed leader of the Red Corsairs. In fact, it is mentioned that he has put down members of his own organization for not being suitably loyal, for not serving him as well as he needed. But otherwise, yeah, he is a very harsh leader, but he also allows his underlings to share in the plunder and the conquest, and is also perfectly willing to let other pirate bands exist around him that are not necessarily allied with him, as long as they don't cause problems for him, especially if their existence serves his purposes. So he's also very pragmatic, which you kind of have to be as a pirate lord, because while they do have the ability to manufacture some things, there are some resources that are harder to get without going outside of the Maelstrom. So They are pirates through and through, but they've also basically carved out a mini empire here, kind of like the very dark version of the 500 Worlds type thing. But he is still in charge, and he still has his inner circle, the Masters of the Maelstrom, as the data sheet lists them as. And it's interesting that Huron Blackheart is a unit by himself. All of the rest of his entourage is a unit, and together they can still join like a unit of legionaries or chosen, which is kind of cool. Since that's going to be a huge group because there's like 6 or 7 Masters of the Maelstrom. But that includes Garion, the Corpse Master, which is his Lord Apothecary, who, again, one of those guys that looks like he just loves his job based on the model. His task is making sure that the Red Corsairs numbers keep growing, both by creating new Red Corsairs with stolen gene seed and also their own gene seed, checking for mutations because they actually don't want to all just turn into weird mutant chaos beings, and also keeping the various Marines healthy. And especially, they do mention when other Marines go traitor, now you've got other genetic makeups that you have to work with. And so it's also his job to help keep them healthy and deal with their differing biomechanical needs, as they state in the book. There's Katar Garrix, the headsman, who is a former member of the Executioners chapter, and he basically took that as his job title as well. He is the headsman. His job is when somebody needs to be shown what the cost of disloyalty is, he's there to basically charge into the room and take their head in one swing. And he loves doing it. There are lesser executioners, to be sure, but Garrix is definitely the primary executioner in Huron's warband. There's Garlon Soul Eater, which is his psychic advisor and spy master, formerly of the Mantis Warriors. Someone who's been working with the warp so long that no one has seen his unhelmeted face for a while, and it is rumored he can't take his helmet off anymore. But he's the one who keeps track of, like, what is the warp doing? Where are any artifacts that we may need to seek out? And also, who among our enemy can we turn? Can we disrupt and find and actually carry that out for him? There's Captain Sargata, who is an Imperial naval captain who decided that she wasn't getting the glory she craved. So she turned a ship over. Actually, I think it was an entire naval headquarters that she turned over by sending the access codes to the Red Corsairs and left with them, and is now the fleet master and commander of the Reign of Spite, one of Huron's most potent battle cruisers. And she is an expert in stealing other ships. She will join boarding actions and help commandeer and capture other ships. There's the Enforcer, who is an alien, also named Cord 9 Sorga, who is effectively a bounty hunter that has a dark, twisted sense of honor. She is often hired to chase down people who have stolen from Huron or who have failed him and fled trying to get away, as opposed to like what Garrix does, where it's somebody who's in his organization who is messing around, and Huron needs to have a show of this is what happens when you mess with me. The Enforcer's job is to hunt down people who have gotten away. And she loves her job because she believes very strongly in oaths and honor. And so it's like, these are people who have sworn themselves to Huron's service, and they have failed him. They have stolen from him. They have broken their oaths. They have shown that they have no honor. I will take them down. And she has a pet alien dog, a Barghesi, named Plunder, as close as the word applies in her language. So this is the first time we've seen a Tyrellian. It's a new alien species for 40K, and it's cool to see something very brand new, an alien we've never seen before.
Absolutely. I think 40K could use a lot more like weird alien stuff like that.
Yes. So. Yeah, we definitely need more of that. Beyond the Red Corsairs, who are definitely the masters of the Maelstrom. There's other factions present. I mentioned the Word Bearers. They have the world of Galmec, which is both a twisted Chaos Shrine world and a Forge world, and they have dealings with the Red Corsairs because they can manufacture a lot of the things that the Red Corsairs need. So again, it's one of those cases where Huron is fine letting them be there as long as they have a mutually beneficial relationship. There's Emperor Children warbands in the Maelstrom. There's Chaos Knight houses that are based in the Maelstrom and actually have provided service and forces to Huron's battles in the past. The Night Lords have a presence in the Maelstrom. There's various demonic incursions, because obviously you're in a place where the warp and reality meet. Demons are going to pop up and fight amongst themselves in the great game. Orc pirates are present. And there's also Eldari Corsairs, known as the Unwrath in the Eldari language. And these are made both of Asuryani of Craftworld Eldar, who have decided they want more freedom, that the path system is just too restrictive, but they don't want to necessarily go all out crazy evil like the Drukhari, so they just want more freedom. They are going to break out and do their own thing and become pirates. And also Drukhari, who are kind of tired of having to always watch to see if somebody's going to stab them in the back. So if you want more autonomy and more security as a Drukhari, or if you want more freedom as an Asuryani, joining a Corsair band is a very good path for you. And in specific, they do talk about the Eldritch Raiders, which is Prince Uriel's particular band of Corsairs. Originally based out of the craft world of Eandon, Uriel took up a cursed spear, the Spear of Twilight, and served as a Corsair and harassed the enemies of Eandon as a pirate, and the spear was slowly killing him and draining his vitality. It is cursed after all, and it was eventually going to lead to his doom. We mentioned this in our Xenos episode. He was killed and then resurrected by Yvraine of the Inari, and then took up the spear again. And the book has confirmed, sorry, Dennis, still cursed.
Oops.
I mean, I'm fine with that narrative-wise. I just hope it has a different thing on the tabletop.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know how it's changing on the tabletop, but it is. He is still cursed. He is still doomed. I don't think. Hopefully, it won't be as bad.
Yeah, because the curse on the tabletop was he had to re-roll all his made saves.
It seems, but not great.
No, it wasn't.
It's not great. However, it is interesting that Uriel has kind of gone independent. He's gone free agent. Now, technically, say he was a pirate. He's always free agent, but he was always very tightly tied with Eandon. And Eandon, because they are the craft world that uses ghosts the most, they use the most Wraithbone constructs because their population is so low after Tyranid attacks, that the message of the Inari seemed really attractive to them. The idea that they could bring back souls, like death was not the end kind of thing. However, Uriel has watched the Inari become more and more zealous and fundamentalist death cult. And he does not agree with their methods, but the Eandon are like, well, the Inari understand death and the Ghost Warriors better than anyone else. So we're going to stick with the Inari and be partners with them. And so Uriel's like, well, then I'm going to go off and do my own thing. You've made your path. I'm not following it. So now he is a complete free agent with the Eldritch Raiders. And that leads us to the one story in the book, really, besides like the backstory on Huron Blackheart, and that is the raid on the Crimson Eyrie. The Crimson Eyrie is a space station that the Red Corsairs run in the Maelstrom, and it's one of their bases that they use for resupplying ships. And the Red Corsairs had attacked an ally talk fleet, another one of the craft worlds, and they had captured a number of Eldari. And Uriel found out about this through his Aethermancer, Karseth, the guy with the helmet with the big bug eyes, and decided he was going to take them back. He was going to lead a raid on the Red Corsairs and rescue those Ally Talk prisoners. Now, the Red Corsairs have massive fleets, and their ships, the Imperial ships, are far more sturdy than the very fast but fragile Eldari ships. So he had a plan. The Eyrie is in a planetary system, and so he was going to send some fast small ships to basically harass the fleets outside, harass the area itself, and then fly away and distract them. Meanwhile, his main two ships would be hidden in the gravity well of the nearby planet, and once the path was clear, they would use the gravity to slingshot themselves quickly over to the area and do a lightning raid, break in, rescue the prisoners, get out. And this plan would have been perfect had there been one thing he had known about. Huron Blackheart was on the fleet that was returning to the Crimson Eyrie, because he wasn't on his standard battleship. He was just on this fleet for other reasons. And so what Huron sees as his fleet is arriving at the Crimson Eyrie, a bunch of Eldari ships fly by and like shoot them as they run by and then just fly off. And this pisses him off. Someone has attacked him in his territory. So he turns to follow the Eldari ships that are escaping. At this point, Uriel triggers his plan, slingshots across now that the Crimson area is undefended, lands, they break in, they cut through like the normal humans who are there, like Trader Guard and such, and they manage to rescue the Alaita captives. They recover a number of Eldari artifacts that were stolen, and a bunch of stolen soul stones taken from Eldari corpses. So everything is looking really good. However, at that point, the Red Corsair Marines start arriving, and now they're like, okay, these guys are tough. We're not here to take this place over. We've got what we want. Let's start getting away. Around this same time, Huron Blackheart realizes what has happened, that he has been lured away and that someone is attacking the Crimson Area, because the Psychers, the Chaos Psychers on the Crimson Area sent out basically astropathic alerts saying, help, help, we're under attack. Huron he gets the message and is like, okay, I need to turn back around and attack the Eldari fleet. At this point, the Eldari ships are starting to get away, but Uriel loses one of his two main ships in the attack. Uriel himself gets away, but he does lose a ship, I think, called the Jade Chris. Huron is embarrassed because he has been attacked in his home territory and he has had things taken from him. And so he vows vengeance against Uriel and the Eldritch Raiders. And that's kind of where the story ends. It's just like a real quick little story mission. It's not like an ongoing long narrative, but it's just kind of setting the scene for these pirate bands are constantly attacking each other and taking what they need. Or in this case, it was a rescue mission to try to get some Malatok peoples, which can help Uriel have better relations with the other craft worlds, and some of them may want to join his pirate band. And meanwhile, Huron Blackheart has just had his nose bloodied and does not appreciate it, and so there's going to be some fighting between the Eldari and the Red Corsairs in the future, I imagine. Now, all that sets the scene for the campaign system here. Now, this campaign system, way simpler than anything from 500 Worlds. First off, no map. No map cheat, a number of missions, and a mission matrix. Also, this is a very different campaign in that 500 Worlds supports play of like multiple level game sizes, like 1,000 point, 2,000 point, 3,000 point, as most of the things do in like Crusade books and such. This Raid and Ruin campaign system they have is meant for incursion level play, for 1,000 point games. That is fantastic. We love seeing more support for smaller formats. And in this format, there's also army construction limitations. So, for example, when building your force for these games, it's 1,000 points. You can have one epic hero. You can have, and basically you can include a unit in your army if you have enough points. It's your faction. Your army does not already contain an epic hero if you're trying to add an epic hero. So you can have one named character, and your army does not already contain a unit with the same datasheet name as that unit if it's a character, monster, or vehicle, or 4 units if they're battle line or dedicated transport, 2 units with the same name otherwise. So basically, it's got a rule of 2 thing going on. Unless they're battle line or dedicated transport, it's 4 units there.
And then the limitations, only one of each character, vehicle, monster, and only one epic hero. So if you have like Phoenix Lords, only one of them.
Yep. You are limited in what you can build, but for 1,000 points, that's good. That does, it does prevent you from just spamming the same thing. But if you're doing like Imperial Guard or something, you could still have like 4 infantry squads. Now, the thing about these missions is also what you're trying to do. You're not necessarily you are trying to earn points, but it's not the same kind of points because you are playing pirate bands. This is not a campaign necessarily to determine which side defeats the other. This is an idea where you've got multiple people playing their own things. There are no alliances here. This is all just different bands fighting
every
for
army
themselves.
for themselves.
Exactly. And so what you are trying to earn is notoriety points. You are trying to show that you are the most notorious pirate in the Maelstrom. Basically, after each battle, you will earn notoriety points. You get a notoriety point for winning the battle, and then there are challenges, kind of like achievements in this, that you are trying to accomplish when you play a mission, and depending on what achievements and how many times you've done it, you earn notoriety points. So, for example, the challenges are, in this battle, your warlord's unit destroyed 1 or more enemy units in the fight phase, or the enemy warlord was destroyed, or you won the mission and it's not your first mission, or a mission that you've already played. And we'll get to that because you might end up playing duplicate missions. You want to play different missions to try to get this one. At the end of the battle, every enemy unit is either destroyed or below half strength. At the end of the battle, your warlord is in your opponent's deployment zone. At the end of the battle, you control more objective markers than your opponent. Or in this battle, your warlord's unit secured the plunder. We'll get to what that means in a second, but it has to do with holding an objective. Basically, each time you get one of these, your pirate lord, your warlord earns a title. And the higher the title rating, the more points it's worth. For example, if you've killed 2 enemy warlords, you are now the unrivaled, and that's worth a total of 4 notoriety points.
I do like the fact that all of these options are available from the start. You just do what you feel like you can do, and then the more you do it, like each successive game you do it, you go down the track, and that's how you get, like you said, more notoriety that makes you, I guess, more notorious. I mean, that's
Yeah.
silly logic, but yeah.
And they do even mention, like, what happens if we have an odd number of players? The campaign relies on each player playing the same number of battles. If for whatever reason one player has fewer battles played at the end of the campaign, any player in the campaign can play a mission with that player, but only the player who has not finished enough battles will earn notoriety points. That's the only ones that will count. So it gives you a chance to, like, make sure everybody's on the same footing at the very end of the campaign. And so you decide how many games you're going to play for the campaign. And they even say, like, they recommend at least 4 battles. You could do pairings. You could let players pick. You could do a tournament structure. Like this, the idea is this scoring can slot into any pairing system, which that is also cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And then at the end of the game, you keep track of how many objectives you controlled at the end of the game. And then for each one you have to a minimum of 1. So even if you had no objectives, you can still roll and you get a spoil of war. You roll on a D66 table and they give you, and you roll for each objective you control. So if you controlled 4 objectives at the end of the game, you roll 4 times. And each one gives you a buff for the next battle, or sometimes not a buff.
Well, each one gives you an opportunity, because if you had 0 objectives, you roll once, that's what you get. If you had 4, you roll 4 times, you pick which one. So you still only get 1. You don't get a huge advantage. Everyone gets 1 to keep the system balanced.
Yeah.
But you have a better opportunity if you have more to pick what you want or not get a cursed item.
Yeah, because the first 6 options are cursed, but they also will give you additional notoriety points if you can succeed past the curse. Yeah. But yeah, they give you things like extra abilities for your units, or chances to get extra notoriety points, or forcing your opponent to not be able to pick a particular scheme. What is that? We'll explain in a second. Because when you pick a mission for this, you don't pick the mission. And this is very reminiscent of Urban Conquest had something like this, and the Pariah Nexus also had something similar to this, where each player picks a scheme. Then at the same time, you reveal the scheme, and that determines what mission you're playing and who is the attacker, who is the defender. So, for example, your 4 options are Rapid Raid, Planned Strike, Ambush, and Hold Prize. If, let's say, player A picked Planned Strike and player B picked Ambush, then you're playing the extraction mission with player B being the attacker. So it's a little 4x4 grid. Most of the missions determine who is the attacker on this grid. The others, it will specify in the mission. Usually it's a roll-off for those missions where it's not predetermined. And then you play the game as normal. Although there are a couple of other things that are unique to these missions.
I will say this, Rob, before we go on. I really like this system because I loved the Pariah Nexus one. Mm-hmm. But in this one, you can kind of, if you know what types of missions you want, you can tailor your choice of your scheme based on that, because each scheme will only go to 4 of the missions. So in a way, you can narrow it down, and then in a way, your opponent chooses which of the 4 missions you're getting, even though they don't know you're going to do your scheme.
Right.
So it gives you that extra layer within a layer of strategy.
Yeah, very much so. Now, as far as playing the missions themselves, there's a couple of things that are also different about these. First off, objectives can be picked up and moved by units other than vehicles, except for walkers, because walkers have hands. And if you have objective control 0, you can't do this. But otherwise, your units can pick up the objectives and move off with them.
It's the relic.
Yeah, kind of like the relic, except it's every objective. and you keep track of who's carrying the objective. But if you're carrying an objective, they move less. They can't use the fly keyword. And if they become battle shocked, they immediately drop the objective. Or if they're destroyed, they drop the objective. But if you can get that objective within 3 inches of a battlefield edge and not be in engagement range, then you can remove the unit from the battlefield. They aren't considered destroyed, but they can't come back. They don't go into reserves or anything. They're just gone. But that objective does not get put on the battlefield. It is considered secured plunder. So that's where that other objective you can have. Like if your warlord secures the plunder, if the warlord grabs an objective and runs off the board with it, you get extra notoriety points because he took a thing by himself. So this is going to be, I mean, I think it's also good that this is at 1,000 points, because at 2,000 points, this could get insane. But at 1,000 points, this is perfect for that kind of chaos. And it fits pirate raids perfectly well.
Agreed. And that's why I think I'm excited about this, because I like the smaller games. I think we've addressed that. I like the new composition of armies. And I like the scheming, how am I picking my army or my mission.
And they even have stratagems that tie into like the plunder thing. There's a larceny stratagem which says, hey, if you're in engagement range with somebody who has an objective, just take it from them.
Yeah, I like that.
Rip it out of their hands. They do also let you return. They have a stratagem for returning a destroyed battle line unit to your army. So everybody has access to recycle a battle line unit. That's nice to have. There's one other rule here that I think is kind of interesting. The Lurking Reavers rule. So basically, they say like between the distortion effect that the Maelstrom has on reality, you never know exactly where somebody is. And so the following units have the lurking keyword. Infantry units, beast units, swarm units, and every other unit if the player hasn't taken a turn yet. So if it's first turn and you're going second, all your units are considered lurking. Lurking units have 18-inch loan op. If you remain stationary and you're controlling player's movement phase, and you do not charge and you don't make any attacks, then it can get lurking back. So like any unit can get lurking back. If it moves for any reason or makes one or more attacks, it loses the lurking keyword unless it would have it otherwise. So they say as shown above. So infantry, beasts, and swarms always have the lurking keyword. They can never lose it. But your vehicles can also have lurking as long as they don't move.
I know. I saw this. I thought, but then you're not doing anything. What is the point? And I think the point's in a later mission type that we'll get to.
Yeah. And also lurking, like everything having, like all your infantry having it, it encourages you to take more infantry at 1,000 points.
Yeah.
And it also makes sure that you really can't get alpha struck off the board because you're still playing on like a 44x60. So it makes sure that everybody's going to get involved. They're going to get stuck in. They're going to be playing for the objectives. So I think it's a good rule to have in this case. Then you've got mayhem missions. And mayhem missions are multiplayer missions for, they have one for 3 players and one for 4 players. And, you know, they change up some of the rules, like the round of like, how does the battle round work? Is it still the same? Everybody still takes a turn. How does redeploying scouts work? How does the fight phase work with alternating? Who fights? How do you select targets? And then there's a number of stratagems because you don't get the fire overwatch stratagem and you don't get the heroic intervention stratagem and you don't get the counteroffensive stratagem. They replace those with other stratagems, primarily because it's not necessarily your opponent, it's an opponent. Mm-hmm. There's also a parlay stratagem, which lets you offer, like you can basically spend a command point and then offer something in exchange for a requirement back. So you can say, I will offer you extra command points, or I will offer you, I will do this thing if you do something for me. If they agree to it, then you are bound by the agreement that you've made. If they refuse, you get your command points back. So you can always try to parlay, but also know that you're all in this for yourselves. So it's more like, I will pay you 2 command points to not attack me this turn. Attack him instead.
Well, and here's where I'll interject. I think this is where lurking really comes into play, because if you've got 3 people or 4 people on the table, if suddenly you're lurking, well, then they can't shoot you. And they have to shoot the other person. Well, they don't have to, but they're more likely to shoot the other person. As opposed to a 2-player game, well, they'll just move closer and they'll shoot you.
Right. And pretty much all the missions in here that you can choose or that come up via the Matrix, they're all just objective missions. It's like there are objectives out there. It changes up the deployment map a bit. And then it's just, you're just there to steal stuff and get away with it. Although some of them have little tweaks, like Risk and Reward has volatile objectives. So there's always a chance that like the first time you move within range of a volatile objective marker, you roll a d6 on a 5-up. You suffer 3 mortal wounds, and then it's no longer volatile. So the first time anybody approaches an objective marker, it might blow up in your face.
Do you guys remember mysterious objectives? Oh,
when I remember them, yes.
Are you a fan? Not so much.
And then there is one of those missions that has no deployment zones, which I think sounds awesome.
Yeah, chance engagement.
Yeah, each person just drops one down. So, and the only requirement is you have to be outside of 9 inches. So it'll just be either a dotted board, or maybe you'll form some lines. I find that one quite interesting for strategic purposes as well.
Yeah, that one's it's going to be a mess in the best way.
Oh, yes.
And they also say, like, there's the larceny rule on that one, where if you happen to be on an objective at the start of the first battle round, you can just take it. You just automatically pick it up.
Infiltrators are amazing. We've said that about Crusade rules a lot. So, like, this is why Jaegers for Votann were very important when they came out. It's like, oh, our first infiltrators. Or Emperor's Children right now, Tormentors. Infiltrate. Get on those points. Take them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. No, I really like the play style of this.
Yeah, and like I say, compared to the 500 Worlds one, this is so simple, so easy to manage. This one just seems like it'd be a lot of fun. It encourages people to play different armies in a different style, where you have, this is one of those cases where having the limitations actually gives you more flexibility into trying different things. Now, this looks like a fun campaign system, and this is something you could run this at a weekend event.
Yeah,
you could
easily.
Absolutely run this. Yeah. Like if you wanted to do a narrative event where you're all pirates, just tell people, bring 1,000-point list, here's your restrictions, and just go nuts. And everybody's going to be playing different missions based on the schemes they pick. There's not a lot of bookkeeping, because even with the spoils, you just know, like you said, there's just like, okay, so here's my options. Just pick one. There's my thing for the next battle. Don't have to track XP. Don't have to do any of that. You're just having fun with it. And then you could have like, hey, so we're going to take like the top 3 or 4 pirate bands, and they're going to play a multiplayer mission, and maybe the bottom 3 or 4 play a multiplayer mission. And like there's a lot you could do with this and just have a lot of fun. And yet, that is not the best thing in this box set.
It's really good, though.
That's really good, but that is not the best thing in this box set. The best thing in this box set, and we talked about this when they first, kind of revealed it, the Crucible of Champions. Because this is something that, people have been wanting for a while. And we've had stuff like this, like there's the Anvil of Apotheosis over in Age of Sigmar for making your own characters. And I don't just mean, okay, well, here's a Space Marine captain and I gave him a name. No. Yeah. This is a character that you build from a template, and then you apply special abilities, and you pick war gear from a big list of war gear, and then you make that character your own. They are considered Crucible. They have the Crucible keyword, and the thing about the Crucible keyword is a Crucible character cannot have enhancements. Think of them like an epic hero without having the epic hero trait.
Yeah.
And they do specify, like, you choose an archetype, and each faction has 2 to 3 archetypes. Most have 3. One of them has 2, but that one of them does double duty. Then you can choose a specialism. You don't have to. And this usually changes up who they can attach to and what their base war gear is. They are optional. Not everybody can take a specialism depending on like what archetype you pick. Then you always choose an ability. Sometimes those are limited by what archetype. Often they are not. And then you choose weapons, and those weapons may have guidelines based on like what archetype you picked and what keyword they have. But for the most part, you're pretty open, and they'll just tell you like you can have this many ranged weapons, this many melee weapons, this many pistols.
And 2 things on that, Rob. This really feels like they want you to go out of the box, aka kit bash your own character, is like, because they want you to model it with the weapons you chose. They want you to have the same base size and type of character you chose. So we've been bemoaning the lack of creativity and being able to like kit bash your own characters. Doors open with this one. Mm-hmm. And then also the other thing I know in there is I believe they say for 5 points extra, because each of the archetypes has like a base point cost, But like 5 points extra, you can add in extra weapons that are beyond the limits.
Well, no, it's the first 2 weapons you pick. So like if you have, so your first 2 weapons, and instead like each one might be able to take 4 or 5 weapons depending on their archetype and specialism and such. But it's like the first 2 weapons are free. Every weapon you choose beyond that is an additional 5.
Got it. So they still have the hard limit, but the first 2 free. The up to whatever the limit is 5 extra points each.
Right. Unless the weapon says otherwise. There will be some that will have an extra point cost. But for the most part, it's 5 points per weapon beyond the second. So that does have a little bit of balancing. Wow. Point costs
balancing?
for war gear. Who'd have imagined?
Man, that's such a great concept. GW should include
Yeah.
that in the next edition.
Right. But seriously, like, for example, for Space Marines, the very first one they have, you have the options of Champion of the Chapter, which is 70 points base, standard Space Marine stat line with Oath of Moment and Leader. They specify can join any Tacticus unit except for character and fly, and they can join tactical squads. And then they have the ability Exemplar Warrior once per turn when this model's unit is selected to shoot or fight. It can use this ability if it does until the end of the phase. Each time this model makes an attack, you can re-roll the wound roll. Which basically, they can just re-roll wounds, and their unit can re-roll wounds. Very nice, very useful ability. There's also a Librarius Adept, which is a Psyker that gives its unit sustained hits 1, same units they can lead. And then a Venerable Battle Brother. It's a Dreadnought. You can make a Dreadnought character if you want for 160 points. Then you can choose a specialism. So, for example, for your, let's say, we're going to go simple. We'll go Champion of the Chapter. Do you want them in a heavy jump pack and Gravis armor? That's an option. Do you just want them in a regular jump pack? Do you want them in Phobos armor? Do you want them on a bike? Do you want them in Terminator armor? All of these have point costs associated with them. They will change up who they can be attached to. It will change their characteristics. So, for example, if you want to be on a bike, it's 15 points. You change their move characteristic to 12, their toughness to 5, their wounds characteristic to 5. They can join mounted units, or they can join outrider squads. They gain the mounted keyword, and they're equipped with a twin bolt rifle in addition to whatever weapons you choose. So that first weapon will be free. So once they get, again, once they get beyond the first extra weapon they pick, it'll be 5 points. Which means you can have a librarian on a bike if you want, which you couldn't do before.
Yeah.
What if I wanted a chaplain on
You could
bike?
have a librarian in a jump pack.
That's new.
And then the ability, you always choose an ability, which, like for Space Marines, Adamantine Will, 4-up, feel no pain against psychic attacks. Astartes Banner, +1 objective control. Blessing of the Omnissiah, so no dreadnoughts for this one, but you basically get the Tech Marine ability to heal vehicles. Litany of Hate, you want to be a chaplain? That's the chaplain ability. It costs you 10 points to take.
So I can make a normal guy, make him on a bike, and make him a chaplain.
Yep. Narthesium, do you want to have a psychic apothecary? You can make a Librarius Adept with the Narthesium and return bodyguard units. You can have the Captain's Rights of Battle ability or the Lieutenant's Tactical Precision ability. You've got an archetype. You can mix it with an ability that doesn't necessarily fit that archetype. So, for example, if you want to have a Dreadnought with Tactical Precision so it all has lethal hits, go for it. You totally can. You can have a Dreadnought with an Arthesium. You can have a Redemptor Dread Doctor.
Yeah, but that doesn't work because I think he has to be.
Well, that's true because it doesn't join. It's still funny.
Okay, it's funny. It's pointless.
Or you could have a Chaplain Dread.
Yes, you could have a Chaplain Dread.
+1 Chaplain Dread. Remember when those were the big thing?
Oh yeah.
And they have a list of
at one time too.
Yep. Well, and that is one of the things. The Blood Angels have the Venerable Librarian option for Dreadnoughts. I can have a Redemptor Librarian Dread finally.
Okay, that's a little scary.
But that's the thing that they put in. It's like, so there's a list of weapons. The Dreadnought champions have their own list of weapons, and they tell you like you select like this to be equipped with, and then this, and you can set something up where it's like I've got one arm from a Ballistus Dread, like I've got the dual las cannon from a Ballistus Dread, and then maybe I have the claw from a Brutalis Dread on the other hand. Like you can just do lots of stuff with just in Space Marines. Dark Angels get their own options for a Raven Wing bike. Blood Angels get like Death Company options or Sanguinary Guard options or Death Company Dreadnought or or Dreadnought Librarian. Space Wolves can have somebody on a Thunderwolf mount. You want a Librarian on a Thunderwolf? Now you can.
Yep.
And they keep going. Like the Adeptus Custodes, you have option to make an Old Maiden character. If you want to do like a Sisters of Silence character, you can. You've got options for, making an Alaris Terminator character. The Sororitas have options to make a Paragon Warsuit character.
I like that.
Who's not Morvenn Vahl. Or a character that can join Repentia.
Yes.
That's one of the options as well. Mechanicus has the ability to make different Tech Magoses, different Skitarii Marshals, Iron Strider characters, riding on like their walkers. Imperial agents have options to make like Deathwatch agents, which are, Space Marines, and they give you the option to make, if you take the Deathwatch agent, you can change their keyword to Adeptus Astartes and Deathwatch, so you can use them with the current Deathwatch rules, which is cool. One I really was surprised to see is the Enthroned agent for Imperial agents. Because it's an Imperial Agent Walker, something they do not have at all. I'm still trying to figure out how you model it other than finding the old Inquisitor Karamazov model, but you can make Inquisitor Karamazov in this. And I love that.
He had to come back somehow.
He did. Yeah, and like
as you started describing this, I was like, what other kinds of like legended old like named characters that don't exist anymore that we could build with this system?
Right.
You can make Doom Rider. Like, he doesn't have, like, he doesn't have the, like, disappearing infantry role or whatever, like he had before. But, yeah, you can totally do, like, Doom Rider and stuff like that. No, I love that this feels like this is just a way for them to support, like, all of these old models that were legend that, like, don't have rules anymore. It's like, well, let's just blow it out and give you options to play these.
Well, not just that, but it gives you the option, like, I'm even looking at the Marshal agent for Agents of the Imperium. They've got lone op, but if you can take a specialization, make them one of the Ordos. So if you don't take the specialization, you've just got a lone op person that's got a good melee. Yeah. So that could be like an assassin type. So it scratches the itch of let me create something, because between the specializations, the archetypes, and the weapons and abilities you mish and mash, it's fun and it's cool, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. They give you options to make a commander in a Imperial Guard Sentinel if you want. They have a frontline commander who can take a noble steed as a specialism, so you can make your own. Like, I don't want to play Lord Solar, but I can make somebody else.
Oh, you can't have a guy in a tank. The walkers.
No, they already have a tank commander, so that's why they didn't let you make a tank commander. You can have a custom Grey Knight Dreadnought or a Dread Knight, either way. They even have a couple page spread of like, here's some options you could throw together, and here's like the faction and the archetype and the specialism and the ability and the weapons we chose to try to recreate this thing. Chaos Space Marines. Yeah, the ability to have characters on bikes. A sorcerer on a bike. Who could have imagined? Yeah. Or sorcerer on a jump pack.
Next, you're going to tell me there's like World Eaters characters that can like attach to units.
Have I got news for you, Kevin?
Oh my god.
A Butcher Lord in Terminator armor who can join a Terminator squad.
Here's an 8 bless.
They did. They finally did it.
Yep. And one of the examples they had was making a Berserker Surgeon finally. You take a Butcher Lord and you give him Rage Eternal, which allows him to return bodyguards.
Ouch.
You have a Butcher or Berserker Surgeon. Thousand Suns get options for different, like a couple of options for Zangors, which surprised me. They've got a lot of characters otherwise, so just having a generic sorcerer that they can build off of is fine. Death Guard's interesting in that they have a 3 model option, the Trilobe Vectors, where they get to pick 3 different abilities. They pick 1 specialism and 3 abilities. So like if you wanted to have a Plague Surgeon and a like Biologist Putrefier, and a Tallyman, but you want them all in Terminator armor, so you can join them with a unit of Death Shroud. You can do that. You can do just a normal Plague Lord or Plague Lord in Terminator armor without having to use one of the particular lords, or a Plague Sorcerer. Emperor's Children, they get characters that can join Flawless Blades that aren't Lucius.
What? And they get a cool ability for that too, because if you give them the Sickening Stimulation, They can also bring back bodyguard units.
Yep. You can have a champion in Terminator armor. I have an old Terminator champion that Richard, I think you painted for me years ago, and I still have it. And it's like, I can't run it in my Emperor's Children, but now I could.
Yay.
Like, I have options. That's the best part. Options.
And then if you want to even be crazy, you could have that flawless champion that can join the flawless blades, also wield like a Doom Siren.
Mm-hmm.
Or not the Doom Siren, but
No, that could be, that's an option. That's an ability you can give in.
Yeah.
So yeah, you absolutely could. Chaos Demons, despite not having a print codex, gets like a 3 or 4 page spread where you can build charioteers. Like you can build chariot characters or
small chariots, not the old style giant chariots.
Not the ridiculous slam 2 kits together chariots.
Correct. These are more like I'm on an oval base mounted carrier or character.
Yeah, but still, like that's it's something. Or, you know, if you want to have a customized demon prince, they've got that as an option.
That one just seems sick and wrong to me in a way because it's already got like 8 movement. If it gets put Slanesh, it goes up to 11 movement. If you give it the other, I think fly, it goes up to 15. It's just like, oh my gosh, Slanesh, so much movement.
The one that I loved was the I think the example, the skull taking demon prince, which is basically a demon prince with a Chaos Knight arm attached to him.
Oh gosh.
I'm a little bit concerned here though. I can't find anything to be unhappy about in this, and that makes me uncomfortable.
As a chaos player, you don't know how to handle this.
I don't know how to handle this.
Let's see. Eldari, did you want to make a Wraith Lord who is also a Psyker? You totally can.
Yeah, I was like, when I looked at the archetypes, I'm like, War Leader, Skyrunner, Ghost Warrior, which is Wraith Lord. Wait, where's their Psychers? Oh, that's in the specialization or abilities. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they do give you the option like, hey, do you want to make your character into a Ranger or a Corsair or an Aspect Warrior or do you want to turn your Skyrunner into a like Shining Spear? All these options are fantastic. Drukhari. Now, Drukhari only gets 2 archetypes. One is for Homunculus Covens. The other is called an Arch Tormentor, which is a Witch Cult character. But then they give you a specialism to swap them into a Cabal character. But they kept them as a Witch Cult character by default because then that lets you either put them on a jet bike or a skyboard to go with
there's a lot
Reavers or
more
Hellions.
Unit types in Witch Cults.
Yeah. Leagues of Votann. You get characters who can attach to so many of your units now. You get a Steeljack character option.
Yeah, the crazy thing, Kinhost Commanders like your Call, Living Ancestors like your Grimnir, and Steeljack Elder is a Steeljack. It's not the Mimnir Strategist. This is a Steeljack, complete with the toughness and everything. And it's actually got a cool ability that each time this model makes an attack, reroll the hit roll. So it's like, I mean, he doesn't give it to the unit, but you take one of the abilities to give the unit something. So you could give your Steeljacks lethal hits. You could give them a 5-up invulnerable save. You could give them a teleport crest to let them have deep strike. Or, and the crazy thing, like you said with the other ones, Rob, you can make a Kinhost Commander join Berserkers, join Hearthguard by having Terminator armor, join the Thunderkin even, or on a bike. And like the bike one, you can even have that, or the Jaegers, a Psyker can do it. So you can have a Grimnir on a bike, and that's just darn cool.
Yeah, it's like there's so many things that people have been like, I wish I could combine this with that. I wish I could do this. This gives you the tools to do that. And like, we've already been talking about like, hey, the World Eaters get something to fill in gaps. Leagues of Votann get things to fill in gaps. Like this is, I cannot say enough about how cool this is. And the fact they figured out a very basic way to keep it mostly balanced. Just like, here's a list of things you can pick. Some of them cost you extra points. Here's the weapons you can take. Some of them will cost you extra points. Like the more weapons you take, the more points it'll take. Is it going to be like finely tuned balance? Probably not. But is it going to be good enough? Yeah. Like nothing here is like seems amazingly broken. Like this all seems very playable. Necrons get options for nobles, cryptex, triarch, like a triarch stalker. And then they also give you the options for like those nobles. You want to have them. Do you want to have a flayed one character? Do you want to have an Ophidian character? You want to have a Triarch Praetorian character on foot? multiple options for abilities for crypt decks, things like that. Orcs have options for an upstart Gretchen. He does have limitations on what weapons he can take, but I know exactly who they meant him to be. 2 drop blasters, an attack squig, and a close combat weapon. That's the Red Gobbo, baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm just happen to see a warp head because that's the character I always loved is with the orcs, the weird boys.
Do you want to have a warp head on a war bike? You totally can. Or on a Smash a Squig, if you want to have like a big Beast Boys warp head.
How about jump pack? Do they have jump packs?
Let's see. Rocket pack, yes, for the Horde boss. You can't have a warp head on a pack, but you
that's
can
okay.
You can build a custom rocket pack war boss.
Cool.
Let's see. Tau's interesting. What's that?
I said Tau got nothing.
They only get 2.
No. Tau get okay. So you've got your like regular characters, like your the Chaznel, which basically this one is Cadre Fireblade.
Yep.
And you can make him a scout, so you can attach him to Pathfinders instead. So if you don't want to use Dark Strider, you can make a custom character to lead your Pathfinders if you want. And you can also like basically make a Fireblade who has an extra ability that you wouldn't have normally. The Battlesuit Veteran lets you make a Stealth Suit character or a Broadside character if you want.
Broadside's expensive though.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. But that's really cool because like there's never been Stealth Suit characters like ever.
Or broadside characters.
Yeah. So like, oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. And then a Kroot character who can also ride on either the Calamandra, which is what their Lone Spear has, or a Krutox. So you can have them be like a Kroot Rampager or Kroot Rider with a rail rifle. Like that was one of the examples they gave. You can do that if you want. Tyranids get access to node organisms, which are basically like Tyranid warrior based, but you can swap it out to be like Venom Thrope or Zoanthrope based, or a Vanguard, like a Von Ryan's Leaper creature. Prime Organism is basically for doing like Hive Tyrants or similar creatures. Macro Organism, if you want to have a big stompy monster who can take like a 2-up save if you want.
Nice.
The macro one scares me.
Any of those can get the Leader Beast specialism instead, which gives them a 4-up invulnerable save, Psyker, and Synapse. So if you want to have big chunky Synapse creature, that's an option as well. And then Gene Stealer Cult's our last one. They have options for a Cult Insurrectionist, a Cult Guerrilla, or a Voice of the Patriarch who is their Psyker. All of them can be put on dirt bikes if you want, or they could be attached to Aberrants, and a bunch of abilities there for working with like the different kinds of abilities that a lot of their characters have. So again, lets you mix and match existing abilities and make something new and interesting that you didn't have before. And that's it. Like other than that, then they give you like a blank data sheet at the end. There's nothing in this book I don't like. I've been pouring through this book, and every time I find like, oh, I can make this. Oh, you could do this. Oh, this is a thing you can make.
Okay, here, Kevin, here's what you can be upset about. There's not a picture depicting each option that you can do.
I don't need that.
Okay.
I don't.
I'm trying to help you.
Yeah, because like, you know, kit bashing, like I don't need them to show me examples. That's the
Fair.
whole point. That's the fun. No,
Yeah, no.
This is like legitimately, this is awesome, and I'm. This is the type of stuff that I didn't ever think that they were going to include. Like, this feels like it's opening up the system under the hood in a way that I never expected them to.
Well, and I'll look back like a couple editions ago when we had like create your own chapter, create your own craft world, that type of thing, and players loved it. Unfortunately, they were trying to balance it for the competitive scene because there was no narrative back then. But I think people loved that little, what can I design? Because you definitely had your two things of how can I min-max it was one, but the other was how can I fit a narrative for what my chapter, what my craft world wants to be. So I like that they're kind of going back to this and that they're framing it in the narrative sense in a way where this isn't, well, it's not really Crusade narrative, but this is still narrative. And my mind art, like as soon as we got these books, I was busy going through like, what type of Votann characters can I make? What type of Eldar can I, like, I mean, you said, Rob, the Warwalker leading something, or not leading, but being a leader. And Sisters of Battle, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can have something other than Morvenn Vahl in my Paragon Warsuits. So there's just so much that caught my imagination and interest. So I'm super excited about this.
Well, and like you mentioned that it's, narrative kind of focus and stuff like that, but there's nothing in here that doesn't, that would prevent you from like opening this up for tournament play and like letting people just use these characters in normal competitive games as well. Like, obviously, like we have to look at the balance and make sure that's all good. But like at first blush, I don't see any reason why this has to just be limited. Like this could be used in just normal games and normal tournaments.
And they do specify, like in the introduction, they said, while these rules are ideal for creating an anti-hero to lead a ragtag warband through the madness of the Maelstrom, you can use them in any game of Warhammer 40,000 as long as all players agree. If you intend to use these rules at an event, such as a tournament, check the rules for the event first to see if Crucible Champions are permitted before creating your roster. So they basically straight up say, hey, these are, like, if a tournament wants to allow these, there's nothing in here that would prevent that from.
Yeah.
And the fact that the points and the abilities do not seem egregious. Like, the points seem about right. Now, granted, this is not something that's going to be rebalanced for
ever
matched play. Yeah, like, the points here are the points. Like, could I see them doing errata later? Man, maybe, but probably not.
I'm just hoping this is popular enough they will do a second book, maybe with updates, maybe after 11th hits, that tweaks or does something with this, because I would like to see this kind of continue.
Absolutely.
We were talking a little bit before, we started recording. Like, I could totally see this being like the way that character, like in Codex is going forward, that this is just the way characters are designed. That like you get archetypes for your leader, and like this is just an ongoing part of how you create a Space Marine captain or a librarian. Maybe not exactly this system, but like something that mechanically works this way, because it gives you a ton of flexibility and allows you to keep, a semblance of balance going. So I think this is really cool, and I think there's a lot of really cool options for this.
Yeah. And I do feel like this is something when, like, whatever the form codexes take in 11th edition, if we continue to see them printed the same way as they are now, which I kind of hope they move to a more digital release system. But like this stuff right here, you could put each one of these factions is 2 pages. Demons are the only one that are more than that. Well, and then Space Marines, when you add in all the like the weapon options, they're a little bit more, but.
And the extra chapters and the
extra chapters, but those would be in separate books anyway.
Yeah,
fair.
In most of these, this is 2 pages. This is nothing to add to a codex or a faction pack. If they added this to a faction pack along with a page on this is how you build a Crucible champion, like just that how to use these rules page, and then 2 pages on here's how to build an Adeptus Sororitas Crucible character. Like there's no reason this couldn't be in every codex or faction pack. Like this, it's such a small ad, and yet it adds so much. And so, yeah, I think while 500 Worlds, I mean, besides the fact that it is now out of print, 500 Worlds is kind of limited in its scope to, I hope you want to play a big sector-wide campaign, and that's all this is going to give you. And it's a good campaign system, don't get me wrong. I'm excited to run it.
And Rob, that's a gap they don't have right now, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But Maelstrom, this set literally has something for everyone.
Yes.
Between the Raid and Ruin campaign system, which also is such an easy drop-in campaign system, and the Crucible of Champions, which is literally something for everyone. Like, I know they're not going to print enough of these. I'm definitely, as soon as these are up for pre-order, I am pre-order.
What's your thought? 5 minutes is they're going to be gone?
Well, I mean, if you get it through a retailer, you've got a better chance of getting it. Like if you order it through them. But yeah, this is going to disappear fast, especially as more information comes out. Because I'm sure we are recording this a bit early, but I am sure by the time this is out, we will have had previews of this on the site. And I think the buzz on this is going to be huge.
Yes.
Like for the match play, maybe not, but match play is honestly a smaller fragment of the gaming environment for 40K than a lot of people realize. Tournament play is big, but it's not everybody. It's not even the majority. The majority
it's
are people
the most
playing.
Visible.
Yeah, it's the most visible. But this appeals to a ton of people. I mean, it'll probably be a small print run book anyway, but I think this is going to fly off shelves. I really do. It's everything that people have been asking for. Yeah, so I think Maelstrom is the stronger of the 2 sets. And we'll see if there's more sets coming out, but it's going to be hard pressed to top this. Like, this is fantastic.
One thing that I think is interesting, kind of like looking at both books together, rather than like the Arcs of Omen campaign, where it was a very centralized, linear, this has happened, then this happens, and this happens type thing, and like kind of a big scale, like consolidated galaxy-wide event. I kind of like that these are a little bit like spread out, that it's like, okay, this is happening over here in Ultramar, this is happening in the Maelstrom, wherever the next book is, I kind of hope that it's a third, like, unrelated section, and it's like, yeah, here's adventure seeds for this area, here's adventure seeds for this area. I think that's really cool. I like the way that expands the fluff and the narrative of, like, just the setting, because, we didn't really mention it, but, like, all of the stuff with the Red Corsairs and the Bad Ab Wars like that, that's amongst the oldest lore in the game. And, like, they're still adding to it, and they're expanding on it and adding to these characters. And I think that's a really cool, interesting way to kind of touch on the entire setting as, like, an end of edition event. Arcs of Omen was great, too. I kind of like that they did, they hit all of them in this one, propelling, like, the narrative forward. But I also kind of like that they're hitting a bunch of things, like doing a bunch of small hits on these things, too. And setting up conflicts for the future and new war bands and new factions and stuff. So, I don't know. I think I prefer this method a little bit more than the big campaign.
And I want to end with this is a quote from White Dwarf 520. They interviewed the product developer for 40K, who unfortunately they don't list his last name, so it's just Rich. Name is just Rich. He was talking about how they weren't doing the big overarching campaign for this transition. And they said, so how does this work going forwards? 500 Worlds Titus and the run-in books that follow it over the coming months are all standalone sets with their own unique stories. If you want all of them, great. You can set your battles in any of the settings described. Fight campaigns with your gaming groups across your chosen setting. Build, paint, theme your armies across that war zone. Create your own stories in a huge setting that is itself just a speck in a vast galaxy. And I think that is what's cool.
Yeah.
We love seeing the storyline move forward, but it's like, we're not trying to force you to play this. We're going to put out a whole bunch of different options. If you like them all, great. Pick the one you want to play in, get your group going, make the stories you want to tell. And that's what I love about 40K.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're encouraging that. It's a shame that we had to wait till really the end of the edition, but I think now that everybody is out, everybody's been updated, it's easier for them to kind of like just open up and say, all right, here's all the toys, go nuts.
Yeah.
And like we said, thought maybe this is going to be a way they guide things for narrative in 11th.
Yeah. And, it's not impossible. We didn't think boarding actions would get ongoing support necessarily. And here we are 3 years later, and it's in 500 Worlds, and it's still being actively supported. So there's no reason to think. And Apotheosis, Anvil of Apotheosis, Rage of Sigmar survived from I think they've got stuff for it for 4th edition now. So it's kind of surviving an edition change. So there's no reason to think that we couldn't see Crucible of Champions style stuff in the future. But anyway, that is our look at the 2 most recent big narrative releases for 40K. If you happen to get your hands on 500 Worlds, we'd love to hear what you think of it if you've had a chance to play the campaign yet. And we'd love to hear what you think of the Crucible of Champions system. So please listen, like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. We'd love to see you on the Preferred Frenemies Discord channel. So check us out on Patreon. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. But until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming. And yeah, the Maelstrom, I am totally on board.
It's my Valentine.